Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Monday. I hope you all are doing really well. We're going to sit down today and talk about Abdoulaye Doucoure. We said last week when we sat down and talked about Andros Townsend that we were going to do one of these live streams very similar to the Andros Townsend one, but with a little bit of a different type of twist. Today we're going to talk about Abdoulaye Doucoure and how fantastic Abdoulaye Doucoure has been at the start of this Premier League season. He's been absolutely unbelievable so far, and an imperative member of this Everton side, and I'm going to give a few reasons today as to why I believe Abdoulaye Doucoure is, and certainly if he isn't, he should be the first name on Rafa Benitez's matchday team sheet every time he comes to choose not only the squad but also the starting 11. That's how important I believe Abdoulaye Doucoure is to this Everton side. He was very important to Carlo Ancelotti's Everton side last season. He was absolutely fantastic. We saw in that period of 8, 10, 11 weeks for how long he was out for with injury towards the end of the season. We saw how difficult it became to try and pick up points and win games of football without him in the squad, and that just showed his importance to this Everton team. It showed his importance to the rest of the players on the pitch, his teammates that play with him every week, is to understand that they couldn't do the jobs that they used to doing without Abdoulaye Doucoure on the pitch, because he covers various other areas that allow other players to just go and do their thing. And that was an Abdoulaye Doucoure who, like I said, had a good season last season. I think we'd seen, a lot of, and a very good, like I said, very good performances last season, but certainly not the whole package that Abdoulaye Doucoure brings. And we're going to talk today, one of the points is about his attacking play, his attacking style. We've spoken about it and mentioned it a couple of times before. Abdoulaye Doucoure last season under Carlo Ancelotti was having to do a lot of defensive work. His defensive duties, I think, were prioritised much more than any sort of attacking play or presence that he may have had. And yes, okay, in a few games he was allowed to get forward and express himself in an attacking style. However, more often than not, he was defending, he was having to cover with Alan and cover the defence. And he wasn't able to express that natural sort of box-to-box midfielder ability that he has, whereas we're seeing a massively different side to Abdoulaye Doucoure under Rafa Benitez this season. He's allowed to get forward, he's been allowed to express himself on the counter-attack. We're seeing him create chances, scoring goals, assisting goals. He's been absolutely fantastic so far this season, and I think a large part of that is because he's being allowed, as I said, to express himself going forward a lot more, certainly, than he was last season. But he still is doing his defensive duties as you would expect. He's still working hard, he's still battling, he's still being absolutely fantastic at, partnering Alan and covering the back four if and when need be as well. So I thought, you know what, we're on an international break, there's no footy to talk about whatsoever. It would be absolute criminal for me to not sit here and talk about Abdoulaye Doucoure and the impact that he has had on this season so far. We said last week that there's a number of players in this Everton team that you could make an account for as to be the first name on the team sheet. We spoke about Andros Townsend and how fantastic his start to the season has been last week, and how he could be, the number one name on the team sheet for a lot of Evertonians and maybe the manager himself. We spoke about Doucoure briefly, and we're going to do another video talking about Doucoure later on this week and how he could potentially be the number one name on the team sheet. You've got Yerry Mina, who's been absolutely unbelievable this season. Ben Godfrey, who's come back in and done a fantastic job. Jordan Pickford's been very solid as well. So there's various different players that you could make this argument for. Alan, who, as Reece said in the comments, don't think Alan is getting enough praise. Alan, I think, has been absolutely astonishing this season. Don't really think he's put a foot wrong in any of the games. He's been brilliant. He has gone massively under the radar. But I just feel, personally, for me, Abdoulaye Doucoure takes the nod ahead of everybody else. I just think that, okay, yeah, without Andros Townsend and Doucoure, Everton would massively struggle, as we would massively struggle without Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. As we've seen, we've managed to pick up points, we've managed to win games, but it's been no surprise. It's been no sort of like I said, no surprise to anybody that we haven't had as much of a forward presence without Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison on the pitch as to what we've had with Solomon Rondon. He just isn't A, as fit as either of those two players, but B, as good. And that's okay to say. It's okay to sit here and say Solomon Rondon isn't as good as Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, because he isn't, and he was never brought in to be as good. He was brought in to be a backup and to provide cover if and when need be, and it just so happens that in the first couple of days he walked through the door, our other two strikers got injured and he was having to play week in, week out. But we've shown recently that we can adapt and we can sort of cope without Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. We could probably do the same if Damari Gray and Andros Townsend were out. Yes, it wouldn't be ideal, and yes, we'd obviously, we'd be a lot weaker going forward, but we could probably adapt in some way, shape or form to be able to last without those two players for a brief period of time. However, I really do think there's a strong argument to be made that without Abdoulaye Doucouré, this Everton team just simply cannot function the way it does. He is so important. And there's 5 reasons I've written down today as to why he should be the first name on the team sheet and why he's so important. But there's probably another 15, 20 that other people can think of that that I won't talk about or that I won't mention as to why he is just absolutely imperative to this Everton side. And as I said, I think he's absolutely brilliant. He was brilliant last season. As I said, we saw in that period of when he was out injured how important he was to this Everton team, and that was an Abdoulaye Doucouré who wasn't showing everything that he had to offer. He said it himself. He come out himself in a couple of interviews when he was playing really well. I think it was in sort of December January time when he was just absolutely unbelievable. He come out himself and said, yeah, it's great to be playing so well, it's great to have that recognised, but this isn't the best of me. I can show a lot more. And I remember thinking when he done that interview, well, what more can we see from Abdoulaye Doucouré? He's working hard, he's battling, he's winning every ball in midfield, he's been unbelievable. What could he possibly be referring to as to that we're not seeing that he can provide? And I think that question has been answered this season. So let's get in to the first point of today's live stream anyway. If you're enjoying this live stream, if you like this sort of idea, let us know in the live comments. If you're watching live, if you're watching as a YouTube video, let us know in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to do another sort of video of a similar style if you do enjoy. If you're watching live as well, do get your thoughts in the live comments. We'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That only takes a second as well. We are aiming to hit 5,000 subscribers as soon as possible, so that would be absolutely fantastic. So reason number 1 for me as to why I believe Abdoulaye Doucouré should be the first name on Rafa Benitez's matchday team sheet is his attacking play and attacking presence. Now, this is what I was referring to earlier on in the live stream when I said we didn't really see enough of it last season. We saw it on a couple of occasions. There was a couple of times when he broke forward and he scored goals, or he was involved in goals. And I remember he scored the equaliser at Old Trafford in that 3-3 draw. He scored the second, I think, to make it 2-2. Really nice goal. He scored earlier on last season in the Cup as well, in extra time. I can't remember who we were playing. I think we might have been playing Fleetwood. And he scored in extra time to win that cup tie for us, coming off the bench. That was assisted by James Rodriguez. And he did get a couple of goals last season. I think he scored away at Fulham as well, wearing the amber kit. Scored a header. So it wasn't like he was completely sort of, like I said, just not involved in the attack and play last season. It wasn't like he was completely, sort of uninvolved after, past the halfway line. He was involved. He scored goals. He got assists. But there was always that sort of thought of, can he do more? Can he bring more? Can he, considering he's such a big physical presence, he's good on the ball, his passing range is good, he can score goals, he's proven, a couple of times last season, he can score with his feet, he can score with his head. There was always that sort of sort of hanging question of, can we see more from Abdoulaye Doucouré? We knew when we brought him in from Watford that he was a natural box-to-box midfielder. His play at Watford was very reminiscent of what we're seeing now this season from Abdoulaye Doucouré, but not what we were seeing last season. We saw a lot more of his attacking sort of side to his game at Watford than we did last season. So there was always that, as I said, that overriding sort of, I suppose, question as to, can we see more from Abdoulaye Doucouré? Can he bring more going forward? But I suppose, and again, I don't know the relationship that he had with Carlo Ancelotti. I don't know the instruction he was given by Carlo Ancelotti, but I can only assume he was asked to prioritise his defensive duties under the previous manager. We didn't see him moving forward an awful lot. We did on the odd occasion, but we certainly didn't see it, every single game as we're seeing it now under Rafa Benitez. And as I said, I can only assume that's because Carlo Ancelotti was maybe sort of, asking him to prioritise the defensive work, asking him to work in a partnership with Alan. And maybe Carlo Ancelotti didn't believe that Abdoulaye Doucouré and Alan could have a partnership if Abdoulaye Doucouré was moving forward and trying to create opportunities and trying to score goals and get assists, going up the other end of the pitch. It's proven this season that they both can have a partnership, even if Abdoulaye Doucouré is doing that role. But maybe the previous manager believed that that wouldn't be the case, and that couldn't be the case. As I said, Rafa Benitez spoke a couple of weeks ago about Abdoulaye Doucouré, and he said specifically, he was asked what's changed, what's the difference, why are we now seeing Abdoulaye Doucouré getting forward, scoring goals, getting assists, really having an impact up the other end of the pitch, as well as, doing his defensive duties. And he basically said, listen, Abdoulaye Doucouré come to me and said, I want to get forward more, I want to be more, involved going forward, I want to attack more, I want to be involved with goals, assists, creating chances. And the manager basically said to him, go and do it then. Go and do it, go on, you've got free, get forward, get in the box, create chances, score goals, but probably also make sure that you're doing your defensive work as well. Don't just burst forward at every opportunity and leave yourself exposed defensively. Make sure that you can get back and do that job, that defensive job next to Alan. But also, if you can get forward and do it with enough time to get back, then get forward and do it. And we're seeing the benefits of that massively. Abdoulaye Doucouré's stats so far this season in the Premier League: he has played 7 matches, scored 2 goals and got 4 assists. To compare that to last season, he played 29 matches last season, so he missed 38 games in a season. He missed 9 games last season, obviously through injury. Scored 2 goals, so he's already matched in 7 games what he'd accumulated last season in 29 games, and only 3 assists. So he's already performing better statistically than he was last season in a third of the games. Even more so, a quarter of the games that he's played. Obviously, he played in the Carabao Cup this season as well. Hadn't scored in that competition either. But as I said, 2 goals in 7 games, matching his 2 goals in 29 games last season. 4 assists, which is 1 more than he accumulated in those games last season. So it's clear that instruction by Rafa Benitez, it's clear that responsibility given to him by the manager is having a positive impact on him. It's very, very clear. He's loving getting forward. He's loving creating chances. We saw it against Manchester United at Old Trafford last week, just before the international break, getting forward, bursting forward. We've brought in 2 wingers this season in Andros Townsend and Demarai Gray, who are obviously a very, a very sort of, I don't want to say counter-attacking players, because even when we're not on the counter-attack, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Andros Townsend still scoring goals, Demarai Gray still scoring goals, but the pair of them are I suppose, very beneficial to have when you're counter-attacking, when you're coming up against a side like Manchester United at Old Trafford, where you mightn't have a lot of the ball, where you mightn't be controlling the game, and you might only get 1 or 2 chances that you've got to hit them and you've got to make them pay. Now, those 2 players are brilliant at doing that. They're fast, pacey wingers who can beat players and who can score goals. Absolutely perfect. They're perfect for doing that. But sometimes you need 3 or 4 players that can bring that. Sometimes you need 3 or 4 players that can burst forward in a counter-attack. And Abdoulaye Doucouré is that missing link that we didn't have last season. There was often times when we were counter-attacking last season, and Abdoulaye Doucouré was maybe thinking, do you know what, I'll stay put here because I'll cover defensively if it comes back at us. Whereas now, we're not seeing that. We're seeing Alan do that defensive work. We're seeing the back line cover themselves, and we're seeing Abdoulaye Doucouré go, no, I'm keeping up with Demarai Gray and Andros Townsend, and breaking forward. And we saw a perfect example of it against Manchester United. Great play by Demarai Gray to send Fred to the shop. And again, as I said, he got to a point where he had 3-4 United players around him. He'd already barged one, off the ball completely, and he needed the pass. Who's keeping up with him? Abdoulaye Doucouré. Doucouré picks the ball up, completely sends another 2 Man United defenders to shot by cutting inside. And I spoke about this when we done the United review last week, how important the pass is to Andros Townsend. It simply can't be looked over. Some people might look at it and go, oh yeah, Demarai Gray done brilliantly. He bounced Fred off the ball. His strength was great. His movement was great. He passed it to Doucouré. Doucouré just passed it to Townsend, and Townsend scored. But he didn't. The weight of the pass is absolutely point perfect. He could have passed that two ahead of Andros Townsend and the opportunity would have gone. He could have passed it a little bit behind Andros Townsend and the opportunity would have gone. He could have passed it, with not enough pace on it, and Andros Townsend would have had to do a bit more, and the defence would have had more time to come and cover it. He could have passed it with too much pace on it, and it'd have been too hard for Andros Townsend to control. But it wasn't. It was a perfectly weighted, perfectly timed pass, and Andros Townsend took it in his stride, one little touch, and got it out of his feet. but I can't stress how important Abdoulaye Doucouré's role was in that goal. We saw this goal against Southampton on the opening day of the season, proving that if he gets the ball out of his feet, he can rifle him in the top corner like anybody else can. We saw it at Watford a couple of times. We didn't see it last season. Even the goals he scored last season, they were goals that you would sort of expect him to score from that position. You've never really seen him rifle run with the outside of his foot or with the inside of his foot into the top corner. But we knew that he could do that. We knew he possessed that quality. So when we saw it against Southampton on the opening day of the season, it was so refreshing to see. Look at what the goal meant to him. He took his top off. He was straight in the crowd. He talked about how, he's always wanted to score in front of a packed out Goodison Park, and how important that was to him, and how big of a moment that was in his career. Again, as I said, another goal a couple of weeks ago against Burnley, albeit disallowed, but he was breaking forward into the box. He was on the end of it. He slotted it. Brilliant finish. Yes, he was offside by a couple of yards offside, if that, but it was another really good finish. And again, the Southampton goal, he's in the box picking the ball up. The Burnley goal, he's in the box picking the ball up, almost as if he's a striker. The goal against Manchester United, he's there as if he's sort of a natural number 10. The goal against Norwich a couple of weeks ago, he's there as if he's the striker. He's, Rondon makes a run, Damari Gray's got the ball, who's overlapping him? Abdoulaye Doucouré, not Alex Iwobi, not, Andros Townsend. I'm not digging at those players, but I'm explaining how Abdoulaye Doucouré's mentality is very clearly, he's got a natural instinct to score goals and to get in positions to score goals, and when he gets in those positions, he's good enough to finish. He's good enough to put his foot through it. He's good enough to, place it in the bottom corner. He's good enough to rifle it in the top bin if he needs to. So his attacking play for me is something that we didn't see an awful lot of last season. We saw it at times last season, but we didn't see an awful lot of it last season. But we're seeing it much more now, and it's having a massive impact on Everton. As I said, 29 games last season, 3 goals for Abdoulaye Doucouré with 8 assists, I believe. Sorry, not 8 assists, 3 assists already this season. He in 7 games he's beaten that. In 7 games he's gotten better stats than what he had in 29 games last season, which is unbelievable for me. Absolutely unbelievable. As I said, 29 games, 2 goals, 3 assists last season. 7 games so far this season, 2 goals and 4 assists. And that's obviously not taking into consideration the goal against Burnley, which was offside. Obviously, it won't take that into consideration because it didn't count and it was offside. But it was another example of him bursting into the box, getting on the end of a ball in and finishing it really brilliantly. As I said, if he wasn't already the first name on the team sheet from last season, his attacking presence and his attacking play, for me, certainly makes him the first name now. Because it just offers us something that we don't have. Alan is brilliant, and I love Alan, and I completely agree with Reece. I don't think Alan gets as much credit as maybe he deserves. And you know what? We're going to sit down this week and talk about Alan as well, because he's boss and I love him. But Alan does what he does brilliantly. He does his defensive duties brilliantly. He battles, he works hard, he gets forward. He can bring the ball forward with his passing range. He's a little workhorse. He battles. He's like a bulldog in that midfield. He does it perfectly. But he's not going to get in the box and slot it past the goalkeeper. He's not going to burst on the counter-attack with all this energy because he doesn't have that, because he's not that type of player. Abdoulaye Doucouré is, and as I said, his attack and play this season for me has been absolutely unbelievable, and it's given Everton something different. It's really, in fact, I would even go as far as to say that conversation with Rafa Benitez and Abdoulaye Doucouré, and Rafa Benitez effectively saying to Abdoulaye Doucouré, go, get forward. If you can get forward and you can afford to do it without exposing yourself defensively, do it. I would go as far as to say that conversation between those two has saved Everton maybe 20-30 million pounds next summer. Has saved Marcel Brands a massive job, because Marcel Brands would have probably been looking at this Everton team at the start of the season thinking, okay, we need wingers, but we probably need another sort of number 10 attacking midfielder, box-to-box midfielder who's going to get forward, because, Abdoulaye Doucouré and Alan are sort of doing the defensive duties. Now, Marcel Brands and Everton's recruitment side are looking at it and go, well, we've got Abdoulaye Doucouré that can do that, and he's proven that he can do it and do his defensive duties as well. So, for me, his attacking play is the first reason I wanted to point out as to why I believe Abdoulaye Doucouré should be the first name on the team sheet this season. So, reason number 2 is his attitude. This is something that's been proven on a number of occasions, both this season and last season as well. We've known for some time now that Abdoulaye Doucouré has wanted to play for Everton. Marco Silva wanted to sign him in his first season and it didn't go through, and from that point it became quite clear that Abdoulaye Doucouré wanted to come to Everton Football Club. Now, he was massively professional, got his head down and worked hard at Watford and didn't sulk or didn't moan or any of that, and that's absolutely brilliant, and that's another massive tick in the box of a player you want at Everton Football Club with an attitude like that. A little bit like Garner did, I suppose, when he wanted to move to PSG and he had to wait until the summer. But as I said, by the way, ignore the different light that's going on behind me. I still need to fix my blinds. I haven't fixed them. If I'm being honest, I don't really know how to fix them. I think I'll just have to buy new ones, but the sun is coming in and out, and that's why there's various different light shades on me, so bear with me with that one for today's live stream if you could. If you're enjoying as well, hit that thumbs up button. It only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you could share the stream as well, that would be absolutely fantastic. But anyway, his attitude, as I said, Abdoulaye Doucouré, we knew ever since Everton first showed interest in him, ever since Marco Silva first showed interest in him, we knew that he wanted to come to Everton. We knew that he wanted to make that move. He didn't get it in his first in the first time of asking. He got his head down. He worked hard at Watford, and he got it in the summer that Carlo Ancelotti come into the football club, and he spoke in his first interview as an Everton player about wanting to play for Everton for 2 years. I think he said something along the lines of, this move is 2 years in the making. I've wanted to be here. This is where I've wanted to be for that period of time. Again, we spoke the other day when we talked about Andros Townsend about the how important it is in those first interviews for players to come across brilliantly, and it's all good. The players sitting there going, yeah, love to be here, I'm dead happy, can't wait to play, but then the interviewer turning the camera off and them going, God, what's next? I'm at Everton. This isn't really the biggest club I've ever been at. I'll turn up, I'll do a bit, and I'll go on with a load of money, and I'm not really that arsed. Whereas Abdoulaye Doucouré, very similar to Andros Townsend, understands that Everton Football Club is the biggest football club that he's ever played for, and he acknowledges that, and I think he also appreciates the opportunity that Everton have given Abdoulaye Doucouré to express himself in the Premier League. Let's not forget, when he signed, Watford weren't a Premier League side, they were a Championship side, they'd been relegated, so I think that opportunity to play in the Premier League again was a massive selling point for Abdoulaye Doucouré, but also the opportunity to play for a club that he very clearly wanted to play for a number of years. He spoke about how he thanks the club and how sort of thankful he is and how appreciative he is, and how he will pay that sort of that trust back via performances on the pitch, via his attitude in training, via his work rate, via his energy, via his passion, via his desire, and that's exactly what we've seen. You won't find many other players in this squad with a better attitude than Abdoulaye Doucouré, and it's great that we can sit there and have that argument, because it's great we can sit here and say, what about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, what about Demarai Gray, what about Richarlison, what about Andros Townsend? It's great that we can have that argument, because that's what we want. We want to be arguing about which player's got the best attitude, because the whole squad's got a great attitude. But Abdoulaye Doucouré, for me, his attitude stands out as much as any other player on the pitch. Every time he's on that pitch in an Everton shirt, he gives 110%. He battles, he fights, he's constantly getting about the pitch. Yes, sometimes he'll give the ball away. Yes, sometimes he doesn't put in the perfect performance. Sometimes you're watching him and you're a little bit frustrated because he's giving the ball away in a silly area, or he's maybe trying a pass that is a little bit too difficult, or he loses the ball. Sometimes he does that. But I guarantee you that if he loses the ball, or if he gives the ball away, or if he makes a stray pass, he's the first person there to go and win it back. He's the first player there battling to try and intercept that poor pass that he's made, or get him back in the faces. If the ball's in the air, he's the first one there battling to get it down. If the ball's bouncing about on the floor, he's the first there, involved in the mixer, as they say, to try and win it back. His attitude is just absolutely impeccable. He doesn't hide in games of football. He does not hide, even when things aren't going well, even when we might be losing, even when we might be playing poorly, even when we might be getting absolutely trampled over by whoever we're playing against. He doesn't hide. He's still first there, trying to win the ball back, trying to create chances, trying to get forward, trying to make something happen. And that is exactly the type of attitude that we want at this football club. Nil Satis Nisi Optimum is Everton's slogan. Everton's tagline, whatever you want to call it. That is what we live by as Evertonians. That is what every single Everton player should live by when they play for this football club. Nothing but the best is good enough, and that is exactly what Abdoulaye Doucouré lives by. As I said, he never sulks, he never gets his head down. I don't think I've ever sat here doing a player ratings or a match review or an instant match reaction, and I might have sat here and said Abdoulaye Doucouré was poor today. His passing was off, or he had a couple of chances to score and he didn't, or whatever. But I don't think I've ever sat here, and I anticipate that I never will sit here and say he didn't look harsh today. He wasn't bothered. He was strolling around the pitch. He didn't look like he cared. He didn't look like he could be bothered winning the ball back or making this pass or making that pass. Yeah, I might sit here and say he was poor and his outball was poor or his final product was poor. But I don't think I'll ever sit here and say, and I don't think I have ever sat here and said, yeah, but he didn't really care today. He wasn't really arsed. He walked around at times. Didn't really want to battle. Didn't really want to get involved. He hid. That's a phrase you will probably never ever have to say as an Evertonian. Abdoulaye Doucouré hid this afternoon. Yes, he'll have bad games, as every player will, but he will always give it 110%. He'll always fight. He'll always battle. He'll always get involved, and that's exactly what we need from an Everton player. We can admit as Evertonians that sometimes we won't play well. Sometimes players will have a bad game. Sometimes players won't perform to the level that we expect, or won't perform to the level that they did the week before, or that we demand of them. But we will never, ever, ever accept players going onto that, walking on that pitch at Goodison Park or wherever we're playing in an Everton shirt and not giving it 110%. Walking around, not looking like they care, hiding in games of football, not really giving it 110%. We won't accept that. We can accept players having a bad game, because players do have bad games, of course they do. But we won't accept players hiding. We won't accept players not looking interested, not showing that they care. And that's something that you'll never get from Abdoulaye Doucouré. He will always show that he cares. He will always show his attitude and how good of an attitude he has. His battling, his physicality, his fight, his desire, his work rate, and he doesn't let his head drop. He doesn't misplace a pass and go, oh my God, I'm having an awful game today. What's the point? I'm just gonna move away from the ball at every opportunity and avoid it coming to me so I don't make another bad pass. He goes, okay, I've made a bad pass. Whatever, is what it is. Get me head up. Go make sure that the next pass is better. Or, I've made a bad pass. They've now got the ball. I'm going to go and win that back now. It's such a positive attitude he comes across. And I don't know him personally. Obviously, I've never spoken to him. I've never met him. I'd love to meet him. I've never met him. But he comes across as such a positive, person. Such a positive human being. A human being that doesn't let things get to him. Doesn't sort of overthink things, doesn't overthink situations. Just if something bad happens, he acknowledges it, he puts it out the way, and he gets on with it, and he moves on to the next thing. And that's exactly what we need in this Everton squad. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would be absolutely brilliant. If you could share the stream if you're watching live, that'd be great as well. We will be getting in the live comments in a moment. So there you go. Point number 2 is attitude. I think his attitude is absolutely fantastic, and I think he embodies exactly what we need in an Everton player. He embodies exactly what we demand from an Everton player. Next point is his fitness. This is something that goes without saying. Point number 3 is, I think I'd go as far as to say he's the fittest player at Everton Football Club. Some people might throw other names at me and disagree. But I do think that I would go as far as to say he's the fittest player currently at Everton. Constantly, as I said, working hard, giving it 110%, battling, desire. There's a running sort of theme that, after the game at Goodison Park, he runs home, doesn't get in his car, doesn't get on the bus, he runs home instead. It's constant with Abdoulaye Doucouré. He's constantly getting about the pitch. As I said, the ball could be in the air in the opposition box and he'll be there winning it. And if the ball a minute later is in our box and it's on the floor, he'll be there winning it again. He's so energetic. He's so powerful in his running, but that's down to his fitness. That's down to the fact that he can do that for 90 minutes. He can get about the pitch. He can cover every blade of grass numerous times over the course of a game on a Saturday, and then do it again on the Tuesday, and then do it again the following Saturday. His fitness is absolutely unbelievable. We saw last season, it come to a point last season where we all had to sit down and say, Abdoulaye Doucouré is playing too much football. Far too much football. And I remember sitting here saying, we need to be careful with Abdoulaye Doucouré because it could get to a point where he picks up a stupid injury because we're playing him far too much. He played 29 games in the Premier League last season. That was just in the Premier League. That's disregarding the cup competition. Played 29 games in the Premier League last season, and I'm pretty sure they were consecutive games. I don't think he missed a game until he picked up that injury towards the back end of the season. And that was, again, that kept him out for 8-9 weeks. So it makes sense that he missed 9 games through injury, 8 games through injury, something like that. He played at least 27 of those, 26 of those games consecutively. And that's obviously not great and wasn't ideal. And we were all sitting here saying he needs a rest, but we can't rest him because we had no one to come in and replace him. Let's not forget, at this point, Tyler Onyongo hadn't quite broke through into the first team, and obviously Jean-Philippe Gbamin was injured. However, he just had to play because, again, we didn't have anybody else. But it wasn't like he had to play and you could see his levels were dropping, or you could see that he wasn't quite, again, he wasn't quite working as hard as he usually does, or he wasn't quite battling as much as he usually does, or he wasn't quite as fit as he usually was. He was given 110% in every single game, and I would be willing to put my head on the line and say that in the majority of those 29 games Abdoulaye Doucouré played in last season, he probably was the player who ran the most in the majority of those games. Even after playing 5, 6, 7 games on the bounce, his running stats were probably still head and shoulders better than anybody else on the pitch. And that is such a vital thing to have, is fitness. You've got to be fit, especially if you're a box-to-box midfielder. You've got to be able to, if you're getting forward and you're being part of a counter-attack and you're creating chances and you're scoring goals out the other end of the pitch, you've got to be able to get back and cover defensively. You can't be bursting, up into the opposition box and, busting a gut to get up there and then sort of turning around and going, I can't get back now, I'm absolutely shattered, and then your defensive duties are being sort of compromised. You've got to be able to get back forward, and it takes a ridiculous level of fitness to be able to do that. And Abdoulaye Doucouré has shown in the 5, 6 games, 7 games that we've played so far this season that he has that level of fitness, and that's no surprise. That's no surprise to any of us, because last season he showed how fit of a player he was, constantly playing, not just constantly playing, but playing 90 minutes in every game, and as I said, still being, quite evidently the fittest player on the pitch, getting forward, always winning the ball back, battling, covering every blade of grass, making challenges, getting it forward, doing his defensive duties, covering centre-backs if he need be, covering attacking players when he need be. His fitness is a massive, as I said, ticking that boxes to what Rafa Benitez will be looking at as an Everton player. That's what Rafa Benitez will have been assessing in Florida during pre-season. That's what he'll be assessing at USM Finch Farm every single day. Who's fit? Who can I trust to go on a Saturday afternoon, play for 90 minutes and understand that they're not going to drop? That fitness level isn't going to drop. They're not going to get to 60 minutes and go, I am absolutely shattered here. And you know that Abdoulaye Doucouré will be able to give 110% for 90 minutes and then probably still have enough energy to go and get on the treadmill for an hour after the game. And that's so important. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Let's get into some of the live comments then before we move on to the final 2 points of the live stream. If you're enjoying, as I said, this type of video, this style of video, let us know, and we'll definitely, think about doing more of these in the future on various other different players and different topics as well. Live Football Goal says clean shave. I have, mate. Thank you for noticing. I have had a clean shave. The beard is gone. I'm going to call it a beard. You mightn't agree, but I'm going to call it a beard. Reece says, don't think Alan is getting enough praise. Both of them have been absolutely fantastic. It's like having 4 players in the midfield, these two. It is. It absolutely is, mate. You're right. Sol says, criminal at Doucouré hasn't got a call-up for France's biggest asset to this team. I would agree, mate. I would absolutely agree. But, France obviously have got a wonderful squad full of wonderful players, but he absolutely deserves that international call-up. Chad says, the Duke has been a revelation this season. I would agree, mate. I would agree. Ed says, we're seeing a fit and consistent Doucouré as he's not played international football. Definitely Everton's gained that camp. Spot on, Ed. Spot on. Live Football Goal says, Ben is going to play left back versus West Ham. Well, we haven't had as much of an update on Luca Dean. We know that it's a hamstring problem, but I'm sure we'll receive an update at some point this week regarding his fitness. Reece says, Ben has been solid every time he's played left. He has. I think we have to sort of, I suppose, understand that attacking play is maybe put on the back burner when Ben Goffey's playing left back, but defensively he's always been fantastic when he's had to play there. Sausage Rotherham it was, yeah, there you go. Whammy says, hey guys, how's everyone doing? Camlad, I'm not too bad. Whammy, hope you're doing well. John says, hi Blues, hope you're all sound. It's right, John, I'm good, mate. Whammy says, no crab gelati, made Doucouré sit back and cover right to facilitate hammers, in my opinion. You know what, you're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. I think he did. I think a lot of Abdoulaye Doucouré's play last season, defensive play, was because we had Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, who were obviously forward players and weren't really going to get back. But we also had James Rodriguez on that right-hand side, who was never going to get back and cover defensively. So Abdoulaye Doucouré almost had to cover that right-hand side. Now, we've not got James Rodriguez on the right-hand side. We've got Anzos Townsend, who will get back and cover defensively. So that allows Abdoulaye Doucouré to get forward a lot more. I agree. William says having Townsend on the right now, he does a fair bit of defensive work, allowing Doucouré to get forward. Spot on, mate. Sol says he's the box-to-box midfielder we've been crying out for a while. Been a pleasure to watch him this season. And Fred got sent to the chippy. Completely agree, my mate, on both points. John says, don't forget Anthony Gordon skinned Wan-Bissaka several times. He did. Happy birthday for Seamus Coleman, says Eugene. Yes, Seamus Coleman's birthday today. I hope you have a fantastic birthday, Skipper. John says Duke's passes, well-weighted passes. You can see his eyes on the replays. He wants to be with us. Spot on. Chad says, even though he's been brilliant and he might be the first outfield player, Pickford surely would be. Well, again, going on, I'm sort of, I suppose, it's the old first name on the team sheet argument. I know he might literally be the first name on the team sheet because that's probably A, Jordan Pickford, and then B, who's ever captain in the side. But on the old first name on the team sheet argument, that's sort of the premise of the video. Eugene says the video that inspired Townsend's flying start, and I was in the new Everton shop in Belfast last Saturday. Is right, mate. Is right. Brilliant stuff. And John says Dukes allows us to play a 4-4-2. He does, and he plays in that 4-4-2 next to Alam. You know, obviously when Abdoulaye Doucouré when Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin return to fitness. Anyway, we will get back in the live comments very shortly. So if you're watching live, don't forget to get your comments in so we can get involved with them and form part of the discussion. If you're enjoying it, please hit that like button. 25 people watching. If you could get the likes up, that would be absolutely brilliant. And if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. Point number 4 then. Obviously, we've talked about his attacking play. We've talked about his attitude. We've talked about his fitness. Now let's talk about his defensive play. This is something that obviously we've seen a lot of last season. We've just spoken about the fact that we didn't see an awful lot of Abdoulaye Doucouré's attacking play or how impactful he can be as an attacking player last season. We're seeing that now. But last season we did see a lot of how important Abdoulaye Doucouré can be as a defensive player. And again, we're seeing it this season as well. We know that he covers the defence brilliantly. He partners Alan absolutely fantastically. That partnership that they have in that centre midfield area is just brilliant. I think it works wonders. I think Alan has got his own role and he does that perfectly. He's constantly winning the ball back. He's constantly battling in the midfield. He's constantly working hard, covering the back line. Again, making sure that, you know, sort of nothing can get past him, and if it does get past him, he's there, involved, battling. But also Abdoulaye Doucouré is a massive part of that partnership. Yes, we're seeing him more, you know, attacking this season, and we're seeing him more as a box-to-box. But as a box-to-box, and, you know, box-to-box, obviously, it ensures that you do that defensive role as well. You're not just getting forward and creating chances, but you're also defending really well at the same time. And Abdoulaye Doucouré does that brilliantly for me. He does that absolutely brilliantly. Whether the ball's on the edge of our box and the opposition team have got a chance to score, he's very, often the first person to throw a challenge in. He's very often the first person to get his body in the way, to throw his foot in the way, to make sure that the opposition team can't progress further. I can't even recall the amount of times this season at Goodison Park, the opposition have had a corner and Abdoulaye Doucouré's been the one who drove the ball out of the box, bringing it forward. Again, covers his defensive roles, his defensive duties, and, ultimately, Abdoulaye Doucouré is a box-to-box midfielder. He's not a centre attacking midfielder. He's not a number 10. He's not a player that just sort of sits in the opposition half. He's a player that we rely heavily on for his defensive duties as well. We rely heavily on for his ability to pick the ball up defensively and get rid of it. Almost act as another sort of centre half, if you like. And, again, we've seen it on a number of occasions this season. You mightn't notice it as much because it's almost just become sort of expectation. You expect Abdoulaye Doucouré to be in our box sweeping the ball up. If the centre-backs can't do it, you expect him to be there getting the ball out and moving it forward. And as I said, covering defensively because that's what he brings. But it's vitally, vitally important that he's still doing that. And he doesn't slip into this, I'm doing really well attacking at the moment. I'm enjoying myself, expressing myself going forward. So I'll just focus on that because that's not what we want from Abdoulaye Doucouré. And I think that's the message that's been given to him by Rafa Benitez. It's not just go and express yourself, get forward and create chances, up front. But in doing that, make sure that you've got enough time to get back and do the defensive work as well, because that is also your role. Your role is to cover, the defence with Alan, be that sort of, I suppose, that sort of barrier in front of the back line. But you can sort of get forward as well on occasion. So his defensive duty, I think, again, is a massive plus point, and is something that the manager will look at and really sort of appreciate, that he's got the fitness and the ability to be able to get forward as well as get back, but also when he's doing his defensive duties, he's doing it at a really, really good level as well. And then the final point I want to talk about in today's live stream is his energy. Now, this may be quite similar to fitness, and you might sort of say, Cam, you've maybe a bit cheated there. Energy and fitness do sort of tie in to each other, but I think it's a little bit different, to be honest. I do think it's a little bit different. I think his energy, is you can be a fit player, you can be the fittest player in the squad, you can be the fittest player in the team, but doesn't mean that you're gonna get about the pitch constantly. Doesn't mean that you're gonna battle and like I said, cover every blade of grass. That just might mean you're the fittest player in the team. You might run a little bit more than anybody else, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be constantly, every time the ball is in the air, you're going to be there winning it back. Every time the ball's on the floor, you're going to be there picking it up. I think his energy is something that we drastically need in this Everton team. And when I talk about players that Everton can't really do without, and I talk about Abdoulaye Doucoure, it is because of that energy. It's because of that ability to constantly be everywhere he needs to be, whether it's in the opposition box or whether it's in our box, whether it's on the left-hand side of the pitch or the right-hand side of the pitch or in the centre of the pitch. That energy is so drastically needed, but it also rubs off on other players as well. When Alan, next to him in centre midfield, or Andros Townsend on the right, or Demarai Gray, see Abdoulaye Doucoure, picking the ball up and moving with it, and then a couple of minutes later, if we lose it, getting back and winning it back. Or if the ball, if the opposition is attacking on the left-hand side, getting there and covering the space, on the right-hand side, doing the same. That energy becomes infectious, and other players then look at that and go, actually, I can work a bit harder here. If he can do all of that, then I can work a bit harder and do a little bit more. I can show that I've got that energy as well. I've got that, intensity to be able to cover various different, areas of the pitch that I need to cover. And as I said, that energy is something that I think is a massive plus point for Abdoulaye Doucoure, and will be ultimately, will be something that the manager again looks at and thinks we simply can't cope without Abdoulaye Doucoure's energy in that midfield. It's so vital, because Alan, as I said, is very good and absolutely brilliant at what he does, and I think Alan is a fantastic footballer, but he's not as energetic as Abdoulaye Doucoure, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, because that's why he works so well in a partnership with Abdoulaye Doucoure. But it's the truth. He's not got anywhere near as much energy as Abdoulaye Doucoure has, so it's so important that Doucoure is there with his energy. So there you go. They are my 5 reasons as to why I believe Abdoulaye Doucoure should be the first name on the team sheet. Let us know your thoughts on them in the comments section down below. As I said, attack and play for me is number 1, something we're seeing a lot more of this season. I think he's been absolutely brilliant in doing it. His attitude is just top notch, exactly what you want in an Everton player. Always gives it 110%, understands that we're the biggest club he's played for, and shows that on the pitch. His fitness levels are incredible, and an absolute credit to him as a player and as a professional. His defensive play is unbelievable, and his energy for me is just so important to this Everton side. So let us know your thoughts on them in the comment section down below. If you're watching live, get your thoughts in the live comments before we finish up. If you disagree with any of those 5 points, let me know. And if you've got anything else to add, maybe you've got your own 5 points as to why Abdoulaye Doucoure should be the first name on the team sheet, let us know down below as well. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit that thumbs up button. It does only take a second. Let's get into the live comments before we finish up then. Whammy says, we don't play 4-4-2, John. We mostly play 4-2-3-1. I think a lot of that is because of the injuries to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, to be fair. John says, hi Whammy, thanks. I think we could play 4-4-2 and allow DCL and Richie as 2 strikers. What you think? Whammy says, maybe John, but works better if we play the 4-2-3-1 where the 3 alternative and we have 4 players on the break. 5 when Doucoure gets involved. I think if we went straight 4-4-2, we wouldn't transition as quickly. Fair enough. John says, no way me. I want to get Gray, Richie, Andos and DCL and Richie. There you go, into the same team. So maybe Richie on the left. Keyboard Cell. Delph says, Barry, I'd sell him. John says keep everybody because we have a little backup. Wimmy says Townsend, Graymont and Richie will be the 3 with Richie left, Damari centre and Dom up front. There you go. Everton played a 4-4-1-1 formation against Manchester United, says Eugene. John says big game next week. If we beat them, we have a massive confidence and 5 home games from the next 8. Crowd can play a big part. Yeah, you're spot on, mate. 4-2-3-1 at United, says Wormy. Basic says afternoon, my mate. John says hi. Joe Philly says becoming my favourite player at the club, as humble as anything too. Yeah, I agree. As I said, that leads into his attitude, doesn't it? Unbelievable attitude. John says the Duke is what we've always needed. A proper athlete, reminds me of Patrick Vieira. Alan is a clone of the great Peter Reid. I'm an old git, but I'm happy with the Blues team and manager. Is right, my mate, is right. Where are we then? Wayne says, while I don't disagree about Doucouré as being spot on, the best thing is there are a few players who could equally be argued for, Townsend and Damari Allen. Spot on, mate. Absolutely spot on. I said at the start of the season, we could have this conversation about a number of Everton players, and that is such a positive thing, as you quite rightly said. Also says, and Dom and Richie will when they get back, even Godfrey being moved about but always puts us all in. Spot on. John says the Duke is a great athlete, but he can also be driven too hard. Like last season, we need Kabam to step up and share the load. Well, yeah, ideally we'd have somebody to come in and replace him if need be. Thomas says because he's effing boss, yeah. Jack the Lad says Alan doesn't just bring his defensive attributes, he's the player, but he gives instructions to the rest of the team. He's like the manager on the pitch. I'd agree. I think that's a spot on point as well. And Wayne says, I looked a bit at Longstaff, think he is a bit Doucouré-ish, maybe why Rafa is interested. Yeah, potentially. And Eugene said Rafa Benitez is set to stay at Everton. Was that ever in doubt, or was that just some silly rumour that somebody had made up because they were a little bit bored and they had nothing else to do? But yeah, look, there you go. That is going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. If you've watched live, really do appreciate all of your support, and thank you to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. If you watched this YouTube video, get your thoughts down below and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. Massive thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Cheers for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.